Hey guys, StarCraft here, and no, I said I was going to do that other Raven miniseries, but something came out this week that I know I brought up before, and I'm going to talk about it because I don't think I've seen that many people actually review this. So, and hey, it still sticks with Marv Wolfman, and it's something that actually I know a little bit more about the inside of, at least a little bit of, and that is the 100-page spectacular Man and Superman. Was him and Claudio Castellini on artwork. This is a story that he tried to get done, and Jesus. And well, I'll explain more in the review. So let's just dive right in, shall we? Let's take a look at the cover. It's a very dynamic cover as we see Superman flying through a cornfield heading towards Metropolis. Okay, obviously it's more a symbolic image, but still, I really like it. And of course, we have Marv Wolfman. This was something he was going to be doing for Superman Confidential long ago. Unfortunately, by the time he was almost finished with it, they had canceled the line due to low sales. But eventually, they were given a chance of releasing it finally in the format we have before us. And his collaborator is Claudio Castellini. I know of Claudio best from his doing the artwork alongside Dan Jurgens with the Marvel vs. DC, DC vs. Marvel crossover event. And his artwork then was good, but compared to Dan Jurgens, not as clean. But I can assure you in this one, he has gotten so much better. Little interruption I just want to make that, yeah, I was wrong. Claudio Castellini has been in another piece of work besides Marvel vs. DC, DC vs. Marvel that I will get to one day, and that's Wolverine the End. And his artwork was amazing in that too, and I do plan on getting along to that eventually, I assure you. Trust me. We open up with basically Clark flying in as we see his silhouette all on the ground, and again, it's a very, it is a very good shot. We then see Clark just walking through the city wearing a sweater, and basically he's hearing everything all around him. He's walking through, coming upon some the slums of Metropolis, where basically Metropolis feels like a real city, right down to some vendors on the side doing the whole picking the right card and everything. And basically, it's called 3-card Monty, right? Basically, though, he does it using his heat vision. He's able to figure out where it's at, and he gets it. And he gets it again after the guy in the dealer raises the stakes, gives him 100, and the guy closes up shop. And what did Clark do? Does with the money? He gives it right back to the guy who had lost it before him. Then Clark continues looking around, asking people for his address. People don't seem to know or don't seem to care. Excuse me, sir. You know where this address is? What do I look like? The freaking library? Excuse me. This address? Sorry, don't live here. Miss, would you know where? Are you a registered voter? If you're not, you should sign up now. The election is less than a month. In less than a month. But I don't have an apartment. Do you know where? And she just completely ignores him. Guess not. He eventually finds a cop who points him in the right way, and we then see a brief bit of him thinking back to where he's going to be staying at. 1-bedroom kitchen, living room, safe, clean neighborhood, beautiful views. It sounds perfect. Yeah, Clark's learning how online advertisement usually lie. Safe, clean neighborhood. Yeah, this apartment's not so great, with the landlord basically saying, elevator's out, we're working on it. One of the tenants, and Eduardo, the water's still running brown. You promise, we're working on it, we're working. Oh boy. Brings him up to his room, and yeah. Turns out when it said bedroom, kitchen, living room, yeah, technically it's all there in one room. Again, Clark's learning out how everything's not so wonderful. We didn't see Clark thinking about his parents as he's leaving, and then for a brief moment we see him a lot younger. Okay, I don't really get that part. But then we find out that they sent Clark in with his Superman outfit to use when he eventually needs to. And he's reminding himself about how to be Clark. He then calls up his parents and tells them he just got there. And the apartment, well, obviously he oversells it just so he doesn't let them know that they screwed up. And we have a beat at a fire's going off as Clark's remembering all the stuff Pa Kent taught him. Basically how survey the situation before acting with your ability. There are a dozen ways to solve the problem. Basically showing how Pa Kent basically raised him to find other ways than just doing the direct approach. And while he's focused on him being told where to go by the cops, he overhears Lois Lane, and we see a brief shot of her, no facial shots, as Clark's trying to push his way through, because he's, going a little bit with how post-crisis kind of started, he is very much interested in working at the Daily Planet. Oh, and for the record, smelling the scene at the fire, he realized he smells like gunshot smoke, more likely meaning a bomb. So Clark is thinking about how the Daily Planet, it's one of the big ones, the crown jewels of American newspapers. You make it there, you make it anywhere, basically. And he's, just really, really eager about it. And we're introduced to Lois and a couple of the other people from the planet as they're at the Ace of Clubs with Bibbo. I love Bibbo, but yeah, we don't see much of him. It's just a brief cameo. And I take that back. That's not Lois. That's just another female reporter as they're listening in on the news, mentioning how crime is out of control, and yet the candidate is trying to put the district attorney, is basically trying to put it all, bring about the union backers and all that, and then his opponent is basically saying how the DA wants early curfews and armed militia, but that's only going to turn Metropolis into another Gotham, which none of them want. And Clark is overhearing them say, we have to prevent crime before it happens, not just punish the perpetrator afterwards. Again, I shouldn't say again, but one thing I like about is that we are seeing Clark start to put together different things. And one of the things that he overhears is they're talking about he overhears them mention how the fire earlier was caused actually by a rocket, not a bomb. But either way, he realizing, it was arson. And getting back to what I was saying, throughout all this is Clark deducing how the steps that eventually get him to become Superman. Be proactive, not reactive, ascertain the situation, not always have to make an appearance if he needs to, etc., etc. Seriously, this is already very good, and we're barely scratching the surface. And he's sneaking around, we keep on hearing, and we hear these cops coming around with Lois, but we don't see her at all. Eventually, at one point, then Clark finds the remains of the rocket, and before anyone could see him, he takes off in the air. Lois getting a little bit of a shot as he takes off, and no one else believing him that he flew off. He had thrown the piece of the rocket he found as a distraction. He's later chastising himself for that. He's like, idiot. And when he's chuckling and he thinks about how Ma Kent told him, you said I should give myself a codename. Moron boy. That's what they should call me. Yeah, moron boy. This is going all wrong. I've got no idea what I'm doing. Very interesting. I really do like that. He tries to get a job at the Daily News, and at first he's thinking it's going to go good. Like I told you on the phone, Kent, the writing's good. Better, and then we've seen from new grads, but 3 words in, and I wanted to take a snooze. You read the news, we're in your face, my blood runs dead. Your stuff is the kind of snores the planet runs, and nobody wants to read that gentle crap anymore. Yeah, basically telling him, nope, we don't want that. We want to be edgy. We want to get people wanting to read it, our stuff. Clark realizes this is all wrong, as he's also chastising himself on how he had fingerprints all over that casing he threw. First day in Metropolis, and he screwed up so badly. Well, what does he do? He soon finds out where the device is, makes his way there, and basically burns off his fingerprints before he flies off again. As he's writing up the story that could get him into the Daily News, but when he does, he makes his way and he sees the newspaper and it says, "Flying man invades Casey Plaza, destroys computer evidence. We will hunt him down," promises Commissioner Hawkins. Clark realizes, yeah, he didn't get away with destroying that evidence as he thought, as he's now freaking out. "I was wrong, Ma, and Ma and Pa were wrong. I can't do this. I'm ruining He's interrupted, and as a rocket or a jet flies into the Metropolis Daily News, and it explodes. Clark hurries in there and helps get people out of there. As he does, he's doing it in a way that is keeping people from figuring out who he is. How do we know that? Because later on, Lois again shows up as she's asking around, saying, "You didn't see your rescuer?" We then end with Clark back in his apartment as he's basically saying, like, "This is too much. I'm not ready." As he's hearing all these different words, people, conversations, intercepting all these other police reports. And this first chapter, which would have been the first issue, ends with him basically mailing back his costume back to Ma and Pa, not sure what to do. The next day, in the next chapter, in which he must choose between his fears, we see a redhead dancing with a blonde and all that. They're all dancing outside. We then find out Clark is having a job as a janitor. I mean, he doesn't have a job at the planet, so obviously he has to get by somehow. But as he does, one of his co-workers is reading something. Turns out it's one of his writings. After he reads it, he even tells him, "Clark, this is good. You wrote this?" "Yeah, I like to write. Trying to become a reporter." And of course, it's brought up, well, he needed a job, and writing doesn't always pay the bills. So he and his co-workers, they've become pretty good friends, obviously, by this point. Some time has passed since the last stuff, so yeah. As we're reminded, things are just going downhill more and more as Clark, he accepted the invitation to go to a baseball game. These guys, well, basically are just showing him the more normal side of Metropolis. Where someone works 3 jobs just to get by. They have religious faith, looking out for each other. And Clark, he decides to help out a little by bringing a little luck by sucking in through his nose some air to redirect the ball and have it land in one of his friend's hands. And I love how the other one, the more cynical one, saying, "Hey God, show me the money! Show me the money!" We then see Clark working on some sample work as he tries to get it in at the Daily Planet. But he's been waiting there for a while, and, the receptionist is basically telling him, "Yeah, why don't you send it through HR? Tried it already, didn't work," etc. As he's then talking with one of the other people that works there, named Jack. And as they do, Clark listens in on Perry and Lois having an argument about, Clark's big rescue. As Lois is trying to say, "I've seen it." And then we see Perry storming out as Clark tries to take a chance to talk to him. But basically what he says, "They keep losing my brother. Not my problem. Caesar's ghost, Jack. This has got my ass itching, and I don't like it when my ass itches." Okay, I always love Perry. I prefer Perry over Jonah Jameson because he's hard-nosed, but he's not an idiot. I'm not saying Jameson is an idiot, but at the same time, he feels more like a real reporter, whereas Jameson, sometimes you forget it. And I love this. Does he always rush about like that? That was Perry being calm. And Lois just barges her way on without Perry having a chance to argue, as Clark, trying to at least cover up his identity a little bit, puts a plastic bag right over his face, which, okay, I like it, kind of a reverse mask. And, people could probably see his hair, but they can't make out his lower features, which is sometimes what usually can help out in determining it. as Clark heads over to the office of the mayor as he listens in and spies in, as they are mentioning how things are getting worse and worse and worse. And basically, to prevent current chaos, their demand is going to be for $5 billion. Large enough for our needs, small enough that you can't afford to refuse. Oh, wait, I completely misread this all. Okay, rewind a moment. Alright, basically, they got a message. Turns out this crime wave was, it was staged by some shadowy figure, basically saying, give us all this money or we'll make it worse. And of course, Clark flies off. And we see how the Metropolis DA is basically saying, give them what they want, they'll only move on. We need to crush it now, get the National Guard. Whereas his opponent is basically trying to say, this isn't Nazi Germany, this isn't the Soviet Union. Those who sacrifice liberty for security deserve neither. Again, I kind of like how this is going. It's playing politics, but in a way that's still believable. You have this hard-nosed one guy, and the other guy is basically saying, no, let's not go that far. And while despite Perry and Lois arguing against it, it's unfortunately going to come down to martial law, which is very unfortunate. But and apparently whoever was behind all this overheard that, as the shadowy figure makes it clear, attention, citizens of Metropolis, your mayor has made a miscalculation, which unfortunately for this city demands a response, as explosions start going off all over the place, taking down the LexCorp building and they were near. As everything starts to fall apart, and Clark grabs onto everything and uses his heat vision to melt some of the other falling girders, as people see it and start taking photos of him. And they think for a moment he's bringing it all down. Someone even says, you saw it, he blew up the building, he wants to kill us. I love how Lois says, you wanted to see Sasquatch, Perry? How's that itchy ass of yours feeling now? Caesar's ghost. But now Clark feels devastated. He feels like they blame me. They think I'm responsible. As he just feels like I can't stay here and I can't go back to Smallville. He does not know what to do. As he starts sitting on the Daily Planet, listening on everyone, and looks off and he sees his parents holding the costume as they look on Staten. They're probably hearing the news, it looks like. Due to the attack now, it looks like they are pulling back the National Guard. Martial law will not commence, and they will begin transferring all the money, as Clark feels like he ruined everything. He doesn't know what to do. But then Lois shows up and we finally get her first appearance. As she says, Lois Lane, Daily Planet, I have only one question. Exactly when did this city lose its balls? Okay, in the introduction, Marv Wolfman said he wanted to come up with a different way of introducing Lois, and I gotta say, building up her appearance, just listening in, keeping her face covered, showing us the reporter, only for this moment, is actually very original. I don't think we've ever had an introduction of Lois like this before. Then again, this is the longest we've gone by without Superman, hasn't it? But yeah, we can get on to the next part, in which he asks the question that will change his life. And of course, all thanks to seeing Lois, Clark is now having a bit more change of heart. Why didn't I realize this before? This city is perfect. As Lois is trying to explain to Perry about how the mysterious figure wasn't throwing the girders, he was catching them. Of course, he can't be everywhere at once. And of course, he's pointing out how saying, explain to me how he flies then, huh? If I can't believe it, our readers won't believe it. And Lois is still trying to say is, he's trying to help. And this is our proof, and that's our headline. We'll be the paper that got it right, or the one that screwed it up. It's just, come on, a flying man? Where's his wings? And even points out how Clark erased the evidence from the police computer. Does that sound like an angel? To which Lois points out, didn't they say they had his fingerprints? Maybe he doesn't want anyone to know who he is. Again, and basically she defends him, and he's listening in on all this. And again, I just love all this, how he's just listening in to everything Lois says, and he's making it feel more, and, he's loving it. If someone like Lois can come in from the city, then he has, there's something that he will love about it. Even saying, come on, Rain White, give her a chance, and while you're at it, give me one too. And Perry gives her the chance, but only if she'll get an exclusive interview with Lex Luthor, who's coming back in town. And hello, deal? Damn it, I hate you, Perry. Hate me more. Go get your story. As Clark is just flying around, listening in, thinking. He felt how New York always looked crowded. Chicago seemed cold, and he doesn't mean the weather. Los Angeles, it never came across like a real city. He liked San Francisco and he liked Metropolis, but with Metropolis having the Daily Planet, well, it basically tipped in his scale. And he then looks at the newspaper and, well, turns out I was a bit wrong. While the National Guard is gone, martial law has still been enacted. As Clark is looking at the paper, he's thinking back to how Jack, the guy from the waiting room beforehand, told him the only way to get Perry's attention is to write a story so big he can't possibly ignore it. So Clark realized all I have to do is prove I'm better than the million other journalism students out there submitting their material. Nice. Clark then thinks back to interacting with his parents, and I love the post-crisis Jonathan and Martha, especially some of this stuff, like how Martha is talking about sending $25 to adopt a family to feed four for a whole month, despite money being tight. And Jonathan, first he asked, you sure? But once she was insistent, he's like, yeah, you're right. And then we then see Martha showing off the costume, and basically they explain why they do it, while Pa compliments him on his writing. We then see Clark basically putting it on, and he's asking, and what is it, an S or something like that? Looks like one. And all Martha says was, she doesn't know. It was on the inside of that rocket that brought them there. Besides, she thought it could make people look at it and not just your face. As Clark is realizing what would come about if he puts the uniform on, he may never have a quiet moment again. It is selfish to want to help other people, what other people take for granted. And Paul, of course, points out, no, Clark, but life isn't always fair. Like I say, we do what we do. And Clark is basically thinking, why is it I know what I want as Clark, but still don't know what I want as the other guy? Again, this is some very clever writing all here. I mean, because it's showing that he's been Clark for so long. He's trying to learn how to become Superman. Something, again, we don't usually get. As Clark pays back the money for everything after he got paid, and and his coworker's like, I knew you were good for it. You're a good kid. Again, I'm liking so much of this. Clark then sees a newspaper, and it says that Flying Man saves the city, and he realizes Lois did it as he buys the whole stack. As he's heading off, all of a sudden, looks like there's about a truck that's about to hit a mother and her child. But what does Clark do? And blows on them with his wind and his super breath enough to toss him aside. And well, and the mother just thinks, if it didn't, we could have. Oh my God! As she hugs her son. Yeah, lady, what kind of wind would cause that? Clark then tries to think of some type of headlines he could do, but he is having a hard time thinking of any of them. But as he does, he then peers in on Lois and Perry. As Perry's saying, time to go. She's almost done, but he basically tells her, nope, it can wait. It waits or it's dead. Choose. Anyone ever tell you you're not a very nice man? My mother. Every time I don't call her back. Oh boy. Clark then puts on the plastic bag as he flies off to the airport, as everyone is waiting for Lex to show up. And again, just some of the dialogue. That's it. What's rule number 1, Lane? You do not talk about Fight Club? You're hilarious. You should be writing obituaries. Rule 1. Reporters put their personal opinions aside. We're here for the story. Nothing else matters. And again, I love how Lois is basically sees right through everything about Lex. As he starts to come by down the hallway, followed by a bunch of security guards, and he comes through, and everyone is just loving it. And, yep, we're getting bald Lex, no hair. Okay, it's kind of fitting with the post-crisis, but I kind of liked having Lex without hair, but what are you gonna do, right? Lex starts making the announcements about how everything seems to be going really bad. He's come back after 5 years because Metropolis needs him. The Metro News was destroyed. Alright? A newspaper company that he rebuilt from a struggling scandal sheet. Then his own corporate building was completely destroyed. As he's basically, putting it on a bit thick about how he cares about all the people that died. He plans on rebuilding the property, but those people are the only real losses, etc., etc. As he's planning on having a meeting with the mayor and the DA, and together they're going to save Metropolis. But all of a sudden, Clark looks up in the air as he then sees a bunch of missiles coming in, and the voices from earlier speaks out. Lex Luthor, you were warned not to return to Metropolis. When the federal government left as ordered, we spared the city further assault, but you have destroyed that temporary truce. You and the rest of the city must learn that we and only we are in charge. Let the destruction begin. Moving into the final chapter, in which he becomes a man. As Clark prepares himself, but not only that, but Lex prepares himself as well, as he takes that remote control that just happens to activate lasers that start shooting out a lot of the missiles. But then Clark starts flying in, trying to deal with whatever missiles aren't shot down. And Lois points out, I told you, Perry. I told you he's not on their side. I have eyes, Lane. Alton, your camera. Sorry, Chief. As the voice, one of the missiles takes off, saying, we will return. As, quite clearly, the Flying Man is taking most of the glory, not Lex. But then one of the missiles hits the building and starts to cause debris to fall, as Clark flies in and saves Lois, putting her down. Oh, not Lois. Oh, another lady. Sorry, it's the dark hair. Threw me off. As one of the news reporters saying, only moments after our city's greatest benefactor saved us on the very day of his return. That's a lie. It was for the Flying Man. Lois, you've already watched this 4 times. Calm down already. But it's while there that Clark realizes, wait a second. Why did he set up his weapons at the airport? And he's starting to put it all together as he makes it there. And while Lex is going on about how he's going to help save everything, stop terrorist threats, Clark heads in and starts realizing that, there was a remote radio transmitter. Lex was holding was holding that trigger thing, saying these weapons were set off manually. Why weren't they set for automatic? How did he know? And Clark then overhears on Lex as he's being typical Lex, but then he overhears how Lois Lane is asking for an interview, cancel off his other appointments, never come in ASAP. And we realize Clark, something that was all established post-crisis, read about Lois in the paper, and he's been wanting to meet her for a long, long time. He just had no idea how absolutely beautiful she was. And as Jimmy's explaining how Lex is pushing for John Wicks, the current DA, who is ready to go for more martial law and basically get closer and closer to being a police state. Lois finds a newspaper that basically has a story with the words, thank you for believing and for believing. Lois then runs on off as Clark is waiting out there. Excuse me. Sorry, pal. I don't do handouts. And I love this. I'm not looking for money. I want to be a writer. So does my hairdresser. And then he starts to explain how, explain to her, the story you're trying to put together, Miss Lane. Did you speak to Lucer's pilot, Alex Cummings? Excuse me? Yeah, it turns out earlier Lex had fired Cummings, so he's in the perfect spot to be able to be talked to. And I love how they actually start putting the pieces together, such as Mr. Lucer said he only came back because of the bombing 2 weeks ago, but why did he tell the pilot to get the jet ready for the trip more than a month before? And how the airport buildings with his weapons were only retrofitted last month, just 2 weeks before the attack. And well, Lois is interested in him, and as she explains a bit more. And again, I just love this little back and forth between them. Like, she knows Alex Cummings, and he says, I know you did from the time you dated Lucer. You were mentioned in a few articles, etc. They are being very, very playful. I just love these two. It's one of my favorite comic book couples of all time. She even toys with him, saying, if you ever do become a front page byline, you'd be a major career threat to me. To which Clark's like, oh god, no, I would never do anything to hurt you. And she's like, damn boy, you have any idea how long it's been since I met someone who's competent, let alone could be a challenge? Everyone needs someone to keep them on their toes. Again, I love this. And she looks just so gorgeous, doesn't she? And one thing I just love that really separates from John Bird's take on Lois is that she is loving the idea of healthy competition. And she's basically saying, like, this city deserves more than one dynamite reporter. Don't screw it up. And Lois then meets up with Mr. Cummings. And we find out once again how petty Lex is. That he got fired for the rattling he complained about wasn't even on the list. So, of course, Alex had no idea about what to fix. Yet, Lex fired him anyway. Did he really need a reason? And again, I further love how Lois, she comes there as an interview, but she basically uses it to basically explain every detail about Lex's plan. Everything, how he was using this whole thing to both get government and to buy his plan for the weapon systems, and also get his fellow friend Wicks reelected. And then explains a bit more how that impromptu speech, yeah, I know how you talk. I even helped write some of your early speeches, and yours was written. It was planned. And how could you have planned to respond to something that was totally surprised? Connecting the dots, all the while you're saying, let's get furious more and more. You've been craving adulation all your life, Lex, and you were this close to becoming everyone's hero by saving the city. Then bam, in 1 second, all eyes turned to that pesky flying man. You didn't have a planned response to him, did you? Of course, Lex is basically saying, you're insane. And she just leaves him fuming. We then see Clark, bag on his head and everything, flying in, tracing the signal. When he does, he finds a whole lot of missiles. Turns out, and you see Lex right there. Well, couldn't have planned this better. You know what? And what to do, get rid of everything, as they set off all of the rockets, every last one of them, blowing up the whole place. We then see Clark come out of the fire as the firemen show up, and he explains to me, this is where the flying machines came from, but the terrorists who built them destroyed any evidence that could connect them to him. You can't arrest him, but I can stop him from ever doing it again. As we see him fly off back to Kansas, he meets up with his parents, saying, you were right, and you always are. He explains how he can't stay, but he came back for the costume. Then they see him flying in, smashing into Lex's window. And I just love this. We're getting this all from his first person point of view. Lex tries to schmooze talk to him a bit, but Clark makes it very clear to him, I know what you did. As Lex takes out a gun, tries to shoot at him, bouncing off. Again, all of this going on first person. As he tells him, I'm going to be watching you 24/7. You won't be able to brush your teeth without my knowledge. if you've also flossed. And one of these days, you're going to make a small mistake that I will see. And when you do, then you'll know exactly who I am. As he flies off, Lex left in a bit of a mess as his guards show up. The world's just changed, and I'm going to change it back. As Clark, basically, kind of like post-credits again, gets the interview with the Flying Man. As yes, Lois is annoyed. Wait, what happened to Lois's hair? Oh, seriously, last time we saw her, it was a redhead. Now it's black. What? Whatever. I think that was just a bit of a screw up. And she's like, I wanted an exclusive. Why didn't you ask him who he is or how he flies? Or my question, why is he here? But Clark is thinking, write the story nobody else can. And he asks her, please, just read what he said. I can do many things, but I can't protect you from yourself. You have to believe in the good. You have to make sure you don't surrender your freedoms for security. You can't only hope for a better tomorrow. You have to work for it. I'll be there to help you, but that better world is up to you. And she realizes, by not asking him who or why or how, you got it all. And I know him. Maybe even better, I understand him. To which he basically, she decides to show it to Perry. And after a little bit more playful banter, she basically gives it to him. And she tells him, and be smart for a change. Don't edit it. It's already perfect. And basically, he says, if you don't hire him, you're going to need to hire two. And when he's mentioning about, like, he's going to need a real name. You mean like Bob or Fred? Really? Give me that back. Do I have to do everything around here? As we go back with Lois being the one to name him, as we see him barely making out the costume flying off, as we see what was said, what Superman wants from us. As he apparently signed the newspaper for one of his friends, to my good amigo Sam Keating, from Clark Kent, who will be forever grateful. That is so sweet. So that was Man and Superman, and wow. I love this story. Especially one thing, like I've always loved about post-crisis Superman, is how Clark is the real deal. Superman does not even factor much into this at all. And it's just amazing how it's done. And just really shows how he builds himself up. Wolfman is one of those guys who gets the character, and yes, this is the first time he's written him in a while, but it's really just, again, words, I am at a loss for words at how good this is. You guys really should see for yourself. And the artwork, as you saw, coloring issue right at the very end aside, is so good. And this is just a nice story that it only can fit within the origin. And yeah, it might feel a little like, oh, there's no real major resolution. Yes and no. The resolution is more from Clark's point of view more than anything. Stuff was Lex, typical Lex. He did something, covers his tracks, but somebody's going to screw up. So, yeah, that's the story. So that was Man and Superman. Was it worse than $9.99 price point? Was it worth the wait? Yes, and yes, definitely. What can I say? It's very interesting take on the early days of him as Superman. Clark's the main focus, not Superman, which is something that Marv kind of helped establish with Superman, since he was burned at the start. And it's just something very interesting. I mean, it doesn't fit with the Byrne origin that Wolfman had worked on, but at the same time, no, it doesn't really need to at all. All it really needs is the focus on Clark, him figuring things out, and yes, things start to go a bit badly, but they don't dwell on it. It's definitely not like Birthright, where, oh, things went wrong, people are blaming him, and he really lets it get to him. No. It moves on past that, which I like. so tired of a Superman where it's like, ugh, oh, the world doesn't want me. They think I did all this. What's the point? I mean, again, it does that to a degree, but not to the get up and do something that, and all that. And Claudio Castellini, he has come a long way since Marvel versus DC, DC versus Marvel. A long way. And like Wolfman said at the beginning, you can tell he really put his heart and soul into this. And yeah, it's just incredible. The artwork is great. Though it's a little funky, like I've said in the review, but otherwise it's really good. So if your comic book store has this, or if you want to get in comiXology, get it. I highly recommend it. That's all I gotta say. Take care.